Boys and girls, today we are out in the shop. Step one, surround yourself with motorcycles and you are bound to have a good day. Right now I am breaking down a brand new 2021 whatever KTM 450 SXF, and we have a very Jedi, Star Wars, Star Trek looking, whatever you nerds watch, kind of bike here, and we are doing a spring and grease. It is step one in getting your bike set up. So when you buy a new bike, there's no grease in it. I'm going to show you that, and there's a bunch of other little tips I like to do also, some pertaining to how to take it apart, some pertaining to how you can retrofit your older bikes, maybe 16 and up KTMs, with some of the parts that come stock in these now. They'll be really helpful for your bearing longevity. And then you get a spring in it. So it comes with a 4.5. This rider is a little under 200 pounds, so it's not set up for him. He can adjust his air forks with a fork pump, no problem, but the spring is still a coil, so we needed to jump up for his weight. And the same thing when I get a new bike also, because I'm thick and handsome, or whatever you want to call it. So this is my first cell phone video. I thought I'd give it a shot. If it sucks, which it looks okay right now, then so be it. We'll just go back to the M50. But anyways, here are a couple quick tips on the KTM 450 SXF, 350, 250, or any of the two strokes, and really this will apply to most bikes, but there are some specifics to the KTM. So let's go over to the teardown table and I'll show you what I've got so far. All right, here we are. So it is very handy to have a table like this to set everything aside, but first and foremost, I want to explain how you get these parts off easily, and then show you guys the severe lack of grease these bikes come with from the factory. So first thing would be, when I pull the swing arm, I like to go ahead and pull it with the brake just attached. You can simply take the brake off the frame and just let it all come off as an assembly. So that's really nice. As you can see, everything's just still intact. Really, the bike isn't taken apart at all, save for all the things that fall away from it. So that's very convenient. You can do that to most bikes also. Second thing is, this bike only has 2.7 hours, so it's almost impossible to buy a new bike and not go out and try and ride it right away. It's just too exciting before you do this whole teardown thing. So in just 2.5 hours, I want to show you guys some things that occur with the bolts. We'll start with the upper and lower shock mount, and you can see that there isn't really any grease at all. There is no grease at all, excuse me, and you're starting to get a little bit of a slag there. No big deal on that part, but here is the main linkage arm. As you can see, you can tell that it's a linkage arm by the way that it is. That's pretty neat. You have rust kind of starting to form already, and as you can see, this pin is very dry, and these little black marks here, they are more a matter of water being ground into the metal from washing the bike. It has no protection. So that's kind of the story throughout. Here's another linkage knuckle bolt. This one, you can see, takes on water. You get a bit of a slurry going. So it's very important to catch this stuff in the beginning. And as a matter of fact, I'm not sure if you guys can see it, there is literally water from washing the bike still on the front axle. And this stuff goes in your airbox too, by the way. So really, the people who should be the most concerned aren't so much the new bike guys, but so much the guys that have the used older bikes and you don't know if this has been done. Usually you get into those and you're just repairing the bearings. That's more common. So very important to catch this stuff as soon as you possibly can. Right away is best, and you can see why. So anyways, let's move on to another little tip. So we're going to go ahead and, as I mentioned, swap out the spring. You can see there it's a 4.9 kg is about a 4.8 Newton meter. And you can see that that's a 4.5. So Matt is too fat. What do you know? So anyways, to get this spring off, you go ahead and loosen the preload on the spring with this collar here. You get the spring nice and loose. And once you do that, you can go ahead and then pop up this little spring perch on the bottom, and the entire thing is held in by this ring right here. So I wonder if I can do it with my fingers. There you go. Once I take that off, you can take the perch and this little thrust washer sort of guy. The spring sort of rotates as it compresses and rebounds. That's why it's on that. It's almost like a bearing. And then this entire thing will come out. So really easy, and it's also really easy because the bike is new. These nylon preload collars do not like to come off once you get dirt in the threads. They're absolutely heinous. So guys will end up using clamps and screwdrivers and all kind of nasty shit on them. So when they're new, you can still spin them by hand, and when you do that, try to keep an even clamping pressure all the way around, and then it will float easier as it comes off. So what's the next tip I can tell you? Next tip would probably be that you need to make sure to use a nice waterproof grease, and you can probably get away with doing this just once a year, so it's not really bad, not a big deal. And to get the bike to about this point takes about 20 minutes max. Everything just literally falls away. The longest part is taking your time and opening the swing arm pivots, opening all these bearings and bushings here, cleaning all the slag off at 2.9 hours or whatever it was, and just getting everything packed with grease so that it has a long lasting service life. Also, you can actually remove these spacers here and the seals behind them, and then use a little tiny, let's find a precision driver, something like this, but a flathead, not a Phillips, and you can use that to pry up the dust seal on the bearing that's actually inside the hub. You can pack those with grease too. We're not going to do that on these wheels. Matt has a brand new set of wheels coming. I can't wait to show you those either, because they're absolutely gorgeous. We have a anodized orange hoop, and it's going to be awesome. So what's next? Now, in addition to the waterproof grease, you're going to want gloves. It's very messy. You're going to want clean rags. Keyword is clean. And I use a lot of brake cleaner actually when I'm doing this. I will spray my gloves down, wipe them together, rub it off with a clean towel. That way if you need to touch something clean, maybe you have a little bit of grit or grime or old grease on your hands, you don't want to contaminate whatever it is you're touching next. So very key items: waterproof grease, clean towels, gloves, and brake clean. Here's a good one. So these new collars and seals are one piece. They are SKF. You can tell by the color. They have a fork seal that's this color. SKF is pretty much known as the brand of brands in the dirt bike seal world, so they are excellent. Back in the day, the collar used to sit inside the seal, separate from the seal. Now the seal and the collar, see if I can get this out, are one complete assembly, and you can see that it has a really nice lip seal on the end too. So you can get these KTM bearings for the newer models, and you can put these in your older KTMs if it's time for a service. So that's one of those OEM standards now that you can use on your older bikes to upgrade, which is killer, and that will help a lot. That'll keep a lot of water and debris out. Another tip when you're taking the bike apart, when you remove the brake caliper here, go ahead and tie it up to your frame with a little zip tie or something. That way when you're adjusting the stand up and down, if you need one of these, let me know. I'll make sure you get one in 3 days. Then it doesn't have a chance to fall off the stand, hit the stand, and as everyone knows, you never want to let these hang by the cable. It's no good, or the brake line rather. Same thing with the bars, just tied up out of the way so it's not resting on all of these cables. KTM has probably the shittiest wiring of any motocross bike I've ever seen. It's been proven time and time again to fail, unfortunately. Never a huge deal, but when you can't ride because you have a little 22 gauge wire that fell apart, it's no good. So I like to also tie these up. They're just hanging loose when you get this bike behind the number plate. Best bike made. Comes with the worst wiring harness. It's flopping around. It's a disaster, and you can tell, like, even this stuff falls apart easy. This stuff comes out at the track. Little EFI light connector. See if we can get that there. Yeah, so not good. Anyways, tie this stuff up. And what's the next tip? Another thing on these shock bolts in particular, you can see that they have a little bit of blue Loctite. That means that you need to put blue Loctite back on them. So those are the only bolts I'm aware of in the KTM suspension system that actually incorporate Loctite. So just be sure to get a little bit of that on there. And when you see blue Loctite, or any Loctite for that matter, it's really just indicating that it is a pretty low torque setting item. And also that point of the bike takes a lot of abuse. So The blue Loctite just helps keep everything there. I will give KTM props, kind of, sort of, somewhat on their steering head bearings. They do actually have some grease on them, a very limited amount, and it's already kind of starting to slag up. And as you can tell, it's some kind of Cambodian transmission oil or something. So not the best, but better than nothing. And let's check one more. They've been pretty good lately about this guy also. A little bit of grease in there. See what we can find. Can you guys even see it? Probably not. Get some light. There's a ton of grease in there. You can see it's on my finger too. Anyways, so we're going to go ahead and pack that anyway with what I would like to think is better grease. This is my next tip. If you don't want to take the front fender off and you want to pull this whole thing off as an assembly, a cart handle works absolutely magical for just such an application. So you can just take the whole thing off. It's easier to hang on to. Stick the fender in a cart handle, because if you put this on a table, it's going to be on the ground in pretty short order. So if you guys want me to do a complete breakdown video, step by step, how to do this to literally any dirt bike, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. I do this all the time, so if you think it's a topic of value, I will do that video. All right, boys and girls, so that's pretty much it. As you can see, a little care will go a long way. It's very simple to do. It also makes very good money, so consider trying this for somebody. And basically, a spring and grease is square one for a new bike. It's if you want it to work right, if you want your $12,000 investment to work properly, the least you could do is grease the bearings, and the spring will make a world of difference. Once the bike is sprung properly, still have a bunch of grease on my hand here, gotta be careful. Once the bike is sprung properly, it will hold up better when riding. It will feel more balanced fore and aft. And if you have a bike that you haven't done this to yet, you can kind of tell when it's undersprung or lacking maintenance even, by the way the bike handles. If the bike seems to sack out, or if it seems to G out very easily in the rear or the front, and you can feel that in your back, or it just feels kind of sketchy or unsafe, it just shouldn't feel that way. So look into it. You guys can ask me. I'd be happy to help you, give you my tips or what I think without actually riding your bike. But a bike that is sprung properly, front to rear, will have supreme balance. You will feel very confident on it, to the point where when you're riding, you won't even really pay attention to the motorcycle. You know what it's going to do on a subconscious level. It's going to handle good. It's going to skip over bumps properly. It's going to lay into ruts. It should do that really once it's set up, almost intuitively. So very important. These just very few steps. The grease is cheap. The spring's about 110 bucks. So if you already spent 12 grand, and yeah, these cost 12 grand brand new. If you can even believe that. I remember when they were 6,000 bucks out the door, and it wasn't that long ago. So anyways, a few little things go a long way. Take care of your shit. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask in the comments below. I would be very happy to help you, and I hope you have a great day. And like I said, it starts by surrounding yourself with copious amounts of motorcycles. So be good, and I'll talk to you soon.